Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We're starting another video. We are always doing the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know during the end of days, your reality, why were you born for such a time as this? We try not to be disparate so that the things in the Bible, prophecy, other things like that should harmonize and it should make sense to you. We're Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship in St. Paul. We are not open. I'm sorry. Our building is not allowed to be open yet. So, I've been noticing a connection between the new moons and the full moons and plagues, and it's biblical too. So I'll show you the biblical examples, and we'll see if it fits into patterns going forward. But the big booms are related to the new moons and the full moons. So let's investigate. So you saw some big booms, at least four of them. You should have been seeing six, and they were in Lebanon. So that was Beirut, China, North Korea, and it was interesting in Wuhan province too, North Korea and the UK. Okay, now what day were they? Well, let's find out. It looks like we had an Av new moon, full moon rather, on 8/3, and then the big booms hit on 8/4. Okay, that may not sound biblical, but it is actually biblical. So there it is, Beirut again, North Korea, Wuhan, China. UAE, and they just had, interestingly enough, Trump just signed an agreement with UAE and Israel today. So it's just interesting to note it. I can't say that anything prophetic is meaning, but then in Iraq and then my home area, St. Paul, Minnesota, that's where our fellowship is. So just notice the phases of the moon, the new moon, the full moon, everywhere in the Bible that God is talking about it. We work off the moon schedules, okay? New moon, full moon, things like that. All the festivals are based off that. The only time that you see the sun being used, which is what our calendar is right now, is by the pagans. So keep that in mind. So there's nothing to see here, right? But we have to talk about it, people. I'm getting the questions now where parents are saying, my kids are asking about this because we've been doing 20 years of doom and the kids are kind of getting worn out. Okay, so what do you tell your teens? My focus is as always, is on Jesus returning. And so I can kind of get through this, but I'm also older than these kids. If I was a teen right now, and I was a believer like I was as a teen, and I was connected to the prophetic community too at that point in time, just didn't know it. I would have a tough time because I wanted to go to college, I wanted to get married, I wanted to have kids. I think what you do is you get up each morning and you praise God to be alive and you try to make it through that day. When Jesus returns, he returns, you know. But you can't lie to your kids. You have to tell them the truth. So these signs are actually important, and it's getting obvious that he's returning. So maybe we should talk about it. So look at all these places that kicked off in August, all of these booms, so to speak. And then this is interesting. I can't say that this is exactly the truth, but it's interesting. Lebanon, UAE, China, Iraq, France, which is Belgium too, England. It spells Lucifer. So where's the next one going? Uh, Lucifer. So it's just interesting. There are patterns here. There's something to see here. Um, this is not a prophecy that I can vet. I don't know who Cryptic One is. I don't know who Jonathan Theben is. He might be truthful, but I think he posts everything that's out there. He has some friends that I do trust, and that would be Michael Snyder and Miranda. And so they're listed on his website. This is a prophecy. I want you to see it and just I'll tell you that if we went into the Great Tribulation, this is what it would look like. So whether it's factual or not, it's rather intriguing because it sounds accurate. I have told you what is to come. The sun, the moon, and the stars will darken, the stars will fall from the skies, heavenly objects will enter your atmosphere at an alarming rate. Even the scientists who have observed this phenomena will be taken aback at the speed of how fast something moves. That's the problem. That's what's going to happen. And they're not going to tell you people. I'll prove that very quickly here. Velocity, speed of with a direction, and trajectory, the path followed by a projectile flying or an object moving under the action of given forces. Of these space objects, meteors will pass very close to the Earth, as well as asteroids and the great comet, which is yet to come, probably called Wormwood. Hail will fall from the skies like icicles, causing innumerable damage to whatever it hits. The seas will swell and roar. Yep, that's Luke 21:25, and recede before crashing into the earth in a mighty wave. The tsunami will take down cities, buildings, vehicles, landmarks. Many lives will be taken at this time. The meteor showers will spread across the sky, hurtling towards the Earth with great velocity and force. The Earth will not be able to sustain these assaults from the heavens, and the foundations of your planet will begin to crumble under the weight of these projectiles. I have said to watch the heavens. There you will see spectacular displays of my power and my fury. I can't argue with any of this, okay? It makes sense. Now, am I saying that you're going to have the rapture right away? No, I'm one of those guys that's post-trib, which means we just watch the signs. We go through the seals, then we go into the trumpets. And I'm going to give you more of my timeline today so you'll be able to see a potential timeline. I don't predict the dates because they're always wrong, okay? But I can always say that in any given year, fall is the big time of the year, okay? It just is, not May 21st. Fall is the big time. The festival that no one knows the day or the hour is Rosh Hashanah in the fall, and it's coming up on the 18th, 19th of September. So just watch the festivals. And after you watch this video, you'll understand why the festivals matter. So don't get scared. Talk to your kids about it. Explain things. If we go in, we go in. If we don't, we don't. That's how it works. We try to honor the Bible as the Word of God and not twist it. We try to give you modern prophets that make sense and not twist the former prophets, and then also give you news that makes sense. We're doing the philosophy of the end of days, eschatology. So now first we're going to work on 150. Why do we care about 150? Because it's the first time in the Bible that it's cited, and it's very interesting. So according to the rabbis, and this is from the Chumash, which is, their commentary on Genesis, chapter probably, oh goodness, I didn't note that, probably 8. Okay, from 17 March Chesvan, which is the fall, okay, so that's usually November-ish, okay, when the rains began, to 27 March Chesvan of the following year, when Noah was finally able to leave the ark, was a full solar year. So yeah, read it in the Bible and you'll see that it's the 17th to the 27th, which is 365 days because it's usually 355 on the Jewish calendar, the Hebrew calendar. So it was 365 days that the earth was uninhabitable. This is according to Rashi. So it's very interesting to see that. And then there's this 150 days in there. So God remembered Noah, every living thing and all the livestock with him in the ark. So God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water began to go down. Also the fountains of the deep and the windows of the sky were stopped, and the rain from the sky was restrained, and the water came back from completely covering the earth. It was after 150 days that the water went down. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Okay, so interesting. So you've got this time frame of 150 days in addition. So it's a year, but the 150 is in there. And so God has these interesting sequences. So start to trick your brain into thinking about these little sequences because that's what we're going to go through today. Here's the next time that you see 150 days, and this is really bad. People will probably see this. So you have these scorpion-like beasts, okay, but they're not tiny little scorpions on the ground that you can step on. No, they're going to be about 9 feet tall, and their leader is 12 feet tall, and they're just going to pick you up and cart you off. And if you have the mark of God on you, they'll cart you off. Who cares? But if you don't have the mark of God on you, if you have this 666 on you, they're going to sting you. And it's going to last for 150 days. And you will want to die, but you won't die. So, and you can't really die. So it's 5 months. It's 150 days. So I just wanted to cite the Genesis verse and then cite this in Revelation chapter 9 and how it's going to work out. Okay? So you want to have the seal of God. So let's read it. And it's 5 months, remember? And there are 2 times that it's listed, so 2 witnesses of this. The locusts were not allowed to kill them, only to inflict pain on them for 5 months. And the pain they caused was like the pain of a scorpion sting. In those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. Now these locusts looked like horses outfitted for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold, and their faces looked like human faces. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like those of lions, and their chests were like iron breastplates. And the sound of their wings made a roar, like many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails like those of scorpions with stingers, and in their tails was the power to hurt people for 5 months. So there it is twice. Interesting. So once again, we have the 5 months of torment, okay? But there's probably a gap leading into it and a gap leading out. So let's see what happens with Egypt. another reference that seems to be very interesting. So we're looking at Exodus 7:24 through 25. All the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink because they couldn't drink river water. 7 days after Adonai had struck the river. So they had a 7 day gap. And I'm going to be arguing to you that the plagues in Egypt probably took 10 months or a year, but they seem to be forecast on the new moon and meted out on the full moon. And then there was a 7 day period, so they lasted about 7 days each. Okay, and here's all the plagues, and you can see them just for the fun of it. Look at number 3, the gnats, and number 7, the hail, because that'll be interesting for you to see. So there's 10 overall, but 2 of those, 3 and 7, are very intriguing, and I'll show you why in the early morning. So I want you to look at the bottom also and say, why are the 150 days related to 6 months? So there's a gap. 150 days, 6 months, or 180 days biblically, like the 7 days are related to 1 month. Okay, so just keep in mind, God has these time frames, and I want you to see them as we kind of look through the Bible. So now we're moving through, and the rabbis have a theory about everything, so why not on this? And there was completed the number of 7 days during which the river did not return to its original condition. For each plague functioned a quarter of a month, and for 3/4 he warned and cautioned them. I'm going with half a month, he warned, but you know what? 3/4 works too. Okay? Either way, there are time frames for each month. So I'm saying that the judgments lasted over 10 months or a year, and they were tied to lunar phases, just like the rabbis are saying. It makes sense. So let's see if you agree with me. 7 days. This is a rabbinic commentary from the Chumash. After 7 days, the blood changed back into water. The procedure for each plague occupied an entire month. The actual duration of a plague was 7 days, and the remaining 3/4 of the month was for warning Pharaoh of his imminent arrival. Rashi, okay? And Rashi's an ancient scholar from about 1,000 years ago. According to Da'as Zekanim's understanding of the above, Moses warned Pharaoh for 3 weeks, after which the plague lasted for 7 days. From then until the end of the month, there was neither warning nor plague. At the beginning of the next month, Rosh Chodesh, Moses would start warning Pharaoh about the next plague. So I like that. I think it's new moon, full moon, new moon, full moon. We'll see. Upon the expiration of the 7 days, each plague would cease automatically. There were times, however, when Pharaoh relented and asked Moses to pray for the end of a plague, in which case it would stop in response to Moses' call, even when Pharaoh broke his promise to free the people, as he did every time until the plague of the firstborn. The plague would not resume. So once again, this is the Stone Chumash, Exodus 7, page 328. So why 7 days? So let's look at it again, and let's look at Exodus 7 and just read it, okay? So Moses and Aaron did exactly what Adonai had ordered. He raised the staff and, in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, struck the water in the river, and all the water in the river was turned into blood. The fish in the river died, and the river stank so badly that the Egyptians couldn't drink it as water. There was blood throughout all the land of Egypt, but the magicians of Egypt did the same with their secret arts. So Pharaoh was made hard-hearted and didn't listen to them, as Pharaoh had said would happen. As Adonai had said would happen, Pharaoh just turned and went back to his palace without taking any of this to his heart. All the Egyptians dug around the river for water to drink because they couldn't drink the river water 7 days after Adonai had struck the river. Okay? So there's a month thing going on there. There's a week there. Okay, so you get to see it in context now. All right. Now let's go to Revelation 6:12 through 17 and see this full moon context, just so you could see it and how I think the full moon plays into this. Just bear with me, please. Then I watched as he broke the 6th seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun turned black as sackcloth, worn in the morning, and worn in morning, not boker, which is the morning when the sun pops up. So it's in morning, which would be somebody died. That would be that kind of morning. And the full moon became blood red. Okay, not just any moon. The full moon became blood red. It doesn't say anything about the eclipse or anything like that, just full moon blood red. The stars fell from heaven to earth just as a fig tree drops its figs when shaken by a strong wind. The sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place. And then the earth's kings, the rulers, the generals, the rich and all the mighty, indeed everyone, slave and free, hid himself in caves and among the rocks in the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, follow us, and hide us from the face of the one sitting on the throne, and from the fury of the Lamb. For the great day of their fury has come, and who can stand? So in this case, you can see that's tied to that midpoint of the lunar month, the full moon. And so you'll know with the sixth seal, when you see the full moon, blood red, middle of a month, that's important, and other signs, obviously, too. So just be aware of that as we move through the seals, and that these new moons, full moons play a part in it. Okay, now, you're going to say, I don't care about this. Well, God cares about it, and he sets up a lot of verses to prove that he loves the new moon. So also your days of rejoicing. Well, you like that. At your designated times and on your Rosh Chodesh, you are to sound the trumpets over your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your peace offerings. And it's a reminder before your God. I am Adonai your God, Numbers 10:10. You can say that's just for the Jews. Well, you know what? He doesn't say just for the Jews, and he also has a mixed multitude in there when he's talking. So keep in mind it's everybody. And each Rosh Chodesh of yours, you are to present a burnt offering to Adonai consisting of 2 young bulls and lots of animals without defect. Okay, then sound the shofar at Rosh Chodesh and at the full moon for the pilgrim feast, which is Sukkot. And so that's like the pilgrim feast of the pilgrims coming to America. So just keep that in mind. That's a Rosh Chodesh, and that would be for us, I believe. So don't let anyone pass judgment on you on the connection with eating or drinking, or in regard to a Jewish festival or Rosh Chodesh or Sabbath. These are a shadow of things that are coming, but the body is of the Messiah. Okay, I'm going to explain this to you in my perspective, because a lot of people say, hey, you can't judge me because I won't keep your Jewish festivals and blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the problem. I hang around with a lot of different people, and we've had fights like you wouldn't believe over when the Rosh Chodesh actually occurred. You know, is it the calculated calendar? Is it the sighting of the moon, and who sighted it? And so, oh man, we've had church splits over this, okay? And I don't care. I went back to the rabbinic calendar, the calculated calendar, just so we could agree on one thing and get together and have a party, you know? So don't pass judgment on people. That doesn't mean don't keep them. That means don't fight over one day versus the other day, because, you know, just celebrate the new moon. Celebrate the Rosh Hashanah this fall. Please, people, consider that. Please spend a minute and celebrate that this fall. Now, once again, I'm citing that in Revelation 6:12, John specifically cites that full moon, and not a new moon, okay, called the Rosh Chodesh, when the great signs occur prior to the sealing of the 144,000 and immediately prior to the beginning of the final 7 years. That's my eschatology. Okay. In Exodus, the rabbis contend that Moses would arrive early on Rosh Chodesh, early in the morning sometimes, and Pharaoh considered himself to be a god, so he would head down to the Nile to take an extremely private poo. That's what Pharaoh would do, and Moses would catch him there, because fake gods don't like being caught in a stinky, tall weed Nile squat. Moses would inform Pharaoh of the next plague and leave Pharaoh embarrassed. The plague would occur 15 days or 14 days later on the full moon, you know, depending upon the month. This happened every month for 10 months or a year, could be a year too, okay, until the final full moon, okay? We know the final judgment occurred on Passover. That's a full moon. So that's why I'm going full moon on you, okay? So it seems to make sense that the full moon plays a factor throughout. You are told about it and warned on the new moon, and judgment for sure during the final plague was on the full moon, okay? And we know there are 7 days of gaps in there, at least during one of them. So my theory is that we should begin to celebrate the Rosh Chodesh each month because God commands us to do so. This is joyous for us, and we should pray fervently during the full moons because that's when the plagues may begin. We'll see. It's just my opinion. So once again, here's Pharaoh, and normally he shows up in the morning, but on the third and the seventh, he shows up and catches him in the stinky squat. And so, I'm a guy. First thing in the morning, this is what occurs. And if I thought I was a god, which I don't, I mean, obviously I'm not. There is only one. And so I wouldn't want to be caught by Moses down there. And this is a clash. You don't know the Hebrew, but it says, Moses, you will be an Elohim to Pharaoh's Elohim, small e, but still an Elohim to Elohim. And so if you catch him down by the Nile, he's going to give you the snarl, but you caught him. And this is Baboker in the morning. Okay, Pharaoh caught him, and you can see it up there in the text. Now, here's Exodus 8, verses 20 and 9, verse 13, and you can see rise early, Shechem, early in the morning, Shechem, the early, okay? There's a reason in the morning, blah, 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 care, okay? But Shechem, the early people. This is important. God wants to humiliate Pharaoh and prove that he is the one and only. And Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. He's the one and only, and Pharaoh is not. So does timing matter? Yes, it does. It really, really does matter. And so let's find out why. So this is just a movie, but it's interesting, and I'm arguing that this is like a guy trying to find his Goshen, his Greenland. If you want to watch the movie, I don't know what rating it is. I hope it's not something filthy or anything like that. It sounds like a father-kid movie with a wife. So it sounds like he's a good dad, and the asteroids are coming down. So at some point in time, they're going to rain down on us. Well, I don't know when, but they could start this fall. And we'll talk about it some more. But the main thing is their Goshen in this movie is Greenland. I don't know where our Goshen is, but you're going to have to be praying for this if they start to rain down. So timing is important. We don't know the exact times of judgment, but we know the time frames and the sequences, and we can kind of tell that if I'm correct, and we're moving through the seals right now, that the sixth seal is going to bring blah, and then the trumpets, the first four bring blah. So we kind of know things, so if we can establish that we get through the fourth seal and a quarter of the world's population dies, then the fifth seal comes after that, and the sixth. We don't know exactly when, but we just know here's the next one coming up. Kind of like Moses warning Pharaoh of the plagues. Okay, so birth pangs are the seals. Tribulation is the first 3.5 years. Great tribulation is the last 3.5 years. So let's go through the final, technically the final two seals. Okay, the sixth seal. The stars fell from heaven to the earth just as a fig tree drops its untimely figs when shaken by a strong wind. Okay, so they're flaming, icy figs dropping from our skies. And that's the sixth seal. Then the seventh seal is completely different. It is silence. About the amount of time, a half an hour, to pray the Amidah. It's a standing prayer. Now keep in mind, heaven is always not noisy, but some creature is always praising God in heaven. So to have silence in heaven would be unique, okay? And so it would be a unique day. And also, I'm not answering this question. I'm asking it, does God stand for prayer during the Amidah? I don't know. He sits on the throne. He's seated. I don't know. But anyway, so the Lamb broke the seventh seal, and there was silence in heaven for about a half an hour. Okay. And then we move into, according to my eschatology, the first trumpet. The first one sounded his shofar, and there came hail and fire. So the first one was fig-like, so they're nice and small. But now it's hail and fire. It's probably bigger hail and fire, mingled with blood. So it's an increasing judgment, and it was thrown upon the earth. A third of the water, the earth was burned up. A third of the trees was burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. Okay, so that's number one for trumpets. Number two, second angel sounded the shofar, and what looked like an enormous blazing mountain was hurled into the sea. That's much bigger than figs or bigger asteroids. This is a huge blazing mountain hurled into the sea. The third of the sea turned to blood, a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the total ships were destroyed. Okay, then we move forward. The third trumpet, great star, wormwood. Wormwood is cast into from the sky into the seas, we'll call it, and things become bitter. Okay, and a third of the water becomes bitter. Now we read in Exodus that they camped at Marah, which means bitter, Marah, and the cure for it was basically throwing a stick in the water. Well, I'm arguing that sweet wormwood cures bitter wormwood, and so I'm recommending that you go out and buy sweet wormwood. I am recommending that, people. Okay, it's a cure for COVID-19. It's not a cure, it's one of the three. Okay, so zinc, hydroxychloroquine, and then the third one is a Z-Pack. Okay, though because it's 3 or 4 different things that are trying to kill you with COVID-19, so you want to have those types of things on hand. But this is a homeopathic way to keep yourself healthy. Zinc is always good for you. Z-Pack if you need it, but sweet wormwood is a tea that may cause the waters to be drinkable and may also cure certain diseases. It's been working on malaria and cancer for many, many years, maybe thousands of years. Okay, well, it's been safe for 65 years in the USA to prescribe. Okay, then we move along to the fourth trumpet. The fourth angel sounded the shofar, and the third of the sun was struck, and the third of the moon, and the third of the stars. So the third of them. So it's all. Do you notice it's all heavenly? Okay, and it's all natural. It's all cosmologically explainable, and but they're getting bigger and nastier each time. So just keep that in mind. There's a progression. This is my progression that I want to show you that could potentially work. Okay, so you would have a Tishri 1, which would be Rosh Hashanah. You would have a new moon. The first trumpet is announced. Then on 15 of that month, you would have the judgment commence. Okay, then you go on to Nisan 1. So 6 months later, you see that 150-day gap, and so it's a 6-month time frame, 180 days, but there's the 150 gap. Then you go on to Nisan. So it's you'll see real quick. It's Rosh Hashanah to Sukkot. It's Nisan 1 to Passover, and then back to Tishri 1, Rosh Hashanah. And so every 6 months with a 150-day gap in between, it seems to work out biblically, okay? You see how it's moving along, flowing along with these 150-day gaps in between each one, where, you have the plague, and then you have about a 30-day break. Well, a 15-day break at the end. You have a 15-day as God is warning you about it, and a 15-day at the end to get ready for the next one. So just keep in mind that seems to be the cadence of this. And so I'm saying 1,260 days equals 42 months equals a times time and a half a time, 3.5 years, time before the Antichrist. Okay, so this is the first half of the week of years. Okay, first 3.5 years. And so I'm saying the cycle would look like 15 days plus 150 plus 15, which is 180 days. And you'd see that every 6 months. Okay, just moving along. This is the same slide again, but this is the second half of the week of years. Okay, and so this time it works the same way, but you can see how it's just every 6 months. Another judgment comes along, and there's that 150-day gap in between each one. Okay, so what you need to start being aware of is asteroids are going to play a factor in the end times. So if you start seeing more asteroids in the fall, if they are smaller, then they're larger, then they're much larger, yeah, the end is kind of near. We're going into the Great Tribulation, or maybe already in. Okay, so keep that in mind. And I trust Dana Coverstone. I just sent him an email and it bounced back, so his email is full. So I'm telling you that this is a report that just came out August 12th of 2020, where a government agency said, gee, you know what? We just don't care to tell you what's going on. So if we're wrong, it doesn't matter because we've shut down a bunch of telescopes. And if we're wrong, that way we could explain the fact that we don't have the telescopes, we don't have the people up there with eyes on the sky telling us about all the asteroids. So there's going to be an increased threat, but we're going to take down telescopes. And then if things happen, it's not our fault, and so they're not going to warn you of an extinction level event. They just aren't. It's been the pattern all the way through. And so here's Bernard Fleck, who just got into a fight with Ben Davidson, because Ben, during his August 12th report, said, we have this unidentified comet that just went right on through, and nobody talked about it. And so he said to Bernard Fleck, what's going on here? And that's his email if you want to ever email him. And he said he doesn't care about unknown asteroid buzzing our planet. He doesn't care, because it doesn't factor into his life. He caught most of them. He didn't catch that one. Who cares? They're not going to tell you, people. Okay, so just watch. We've got a standard meteor shower coming right now in 2020 in August. Just watch it, but if you start seeing more, and I don't know what to do with this guy. I like him as a human being, and I like natural news. They're blocked by all the apps out there right now, Mike Adams. I like the people. So this was his report Oh goodness, I don't have the date on this. I'm sorry. It's just you'll have to Google search it because it's on Bright and On, and you'll have to go to Natural News and find it. But John Moore, he's an old government guy, and he said we've known about. You've never heard me talk about Planet X before, okay? Nibiru, and I don't. Okay, I consider it to be fantasy land, but he's talking about other things that will happen to the earth that match up with prophetic words that I've seen for 10, 20 years, okay, with inundations of water and just horrible flooding and other issues like that. And he's basically giving scientific reasons and saying the government knows about this, so just get ready for it. So you might want to listen. It's an hour long, but you might want to listen to him because it's very interesting. Then I found two people that I'm listening to regularly. This guy is Edward Umling. I've tried to reach out to him and talk to him, but he's kind of an angry prophet. Here's all of his videos down below. Um, he's an interesting guy. Each video is like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds. He's a judgment kind of guy. So just be aware of Edward. I can't vet him yet, but he's basically saying it's going to happen soon here. You're going to see some horrific stuff coming up this fall. He hasn't been wrong yet. Okay, and then Dana has not been wrong yet either. So here's his most recent video, and this is from August 13th, and we're going to describe that. Boy, did he misspell August there. All right, so that's Dana, and so what's Dana saying? Here's my take on what he's talking about. His 8:13 video, the fall Moedim match up with that. He's an AOG pastor. He's a sweet guy, dear guy, loving, caring, wonderful guy. He's not uh, um, he's not a scholar. That shouldn't matter, but he doesn't know Jewish festival days. He doesn't look at the Jewish calendar. So, we're approaching the Jewish festivals for the fall that are unfulfilled, okay? And his 8:13 video kind of harmonizes with it. So he said something about the four winds would buffet during the second and third week of October. Then the festival of Sukkot ends Sunday, October 11th, and the new moon of Cheshvan begins on Sunday, October 18th. And he was saying, I think that things start to really increase during those weeks. Okay. Well, he didn't clarify which days they were because he's not looking on a Jewish calendar. And he's not looking for the festival of Sukkot and the new moon and other things like that. But then the pagans grow in excitement when Sukkot is over, the true Sukkot, and when Halloween nears. And he said they went up another notch. Okay, that would be expected. Then there is something called the false Sukkot, and that occurs every year. In 2020, it'll be, and that's Jeroboam's false Sukkot from 1 Kings 12. It falls on Sunday evening, November 1st through November 9th, and includes our election day, just like in 2012. And in 2012, a man came to our church and said, snow in the broom after Sukkot, but before the end of October. And then I said, what about the seals? He said, the third seal opened during the summer of 2012. And Hurricane Sandy hit exactly on Halloween of 2012 during the false Sukkot, the first day. And then it kicked off this huge storm by the last day, okay? And it showed that we had a divided nation just like Jeroboam and Rehoboam. And so it worked, guys, okay? And now it's 8 years later, 2012 to 2020, and this seems to be interesting. We have another election during that time frame, during the fall Sukkot, and then, according to Dana, the pagans are going to grow in excitement during that time frame. Well, they will. So I'm telling you, based on these 7 days, based on Solomon's 7-day festival plus the Sukkot festival, when he installed the new temple during Solomon's time, he celebrated during the second day of Rosh Hashanah at the end of it, okay, for 7 days until Yom Kippur. Those are those only 7 day. That's the only 7-day gap, people. So just watch the Temple Mount in any given year. This year, watch from the evening of the 20th through just before Yom Kippur. Just watch those 7 days and see what's going on the Temple Mount any given year. Now let's move forward into October, and then you're getting into Cheshvan here, and then here's Jeroboam's false Sukkot of this year, starting on the evening of the 1st of November, going through the 9th, and it could be bad, people, okay? According to Dana's prophecy and other prophecies, this is the time when it's going to go psychotic, and that's the false Sukkot, and that was bad in 2012. It's going to be 10 times worse this year. So that's Cheshvan, 15 through 22, Jeroboam's false Sukkot. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And here it is If you took it from that time frame, from say 11/6/2020 all the way forward, 1260 days and 1260 days, which is 2520, you would come to 10/1 of 2027, which would be, that would be interesting. It would be Sukkot. Okay, so it would be interesting. It does work. Okay, I'm sorry. From to yeah, 29 Elul of 5787. So that is 2027. So yeah, that would be that time frame. So just keep in mind that that's a perfect day count, and so that would be interesting. You know, that's a potential thing. So these directions matter for the birth pangs that we're going through right now. I'm saying that the four horsemen of Zechariah 6 tell you the directions, so it's good to know those things. The birth pangs resemble the seals, and you know that we're coming up to seal 4, and I described seal 6 quite a bit today, and here's more about seal 4. If we hit this fall, it could happen very, very fast. A lot of things are happening. So what garments will you wear? It's a wedding, people. That's what we're looking forward to. That's the pain that we're going to go through, is to get the white garments. The white garments represent the righteous acts of Yeshua. So we want to wear those righteous acts, okay? And so that's it. Whoop. We're Beth Hesed, and thank you very much for watching this video, and be blessed. And pray, because this is going to be a tough fall, people. Pray. Amen.